This is Randy Bell with the Courier podcast, the place to come for the latest Clinton news. One of the candidates running in the August 2nd special election for Ward 3 Alderman in Clinton believes his background in the law profession sets him apart from his opponents. Another says he has more time to devote to the job than the other candidates. One says living in Clinton as a child helped to shape who he is today. Another describes himself as a blue-collar kind of guy. And the last candidate to qualify says he really didn't want to run but felt compelled to. Ronnie Morton, Gary Roseman, Robert Chapman, Chris Hughes, and Reggie Walker are the 5 candidates who will be on the ballot in the race to fill the vacancy on the board created by the death of Alderman Bill Barnett in June. Morton is an attorney who moved to Clinton as a college student in 1984. He says the city is in desperate need of economic growth.
And I believe that my practice in working with business owners, job creators, and working, frankly, with families puts me in a unique position to understand the needs of those individuals.
Morton says he would be able to craft policies to encourage businesses and families to move to Clinton. He says we've got to increase the population of the city in order to attract retail. And he says retail and restaurants are what people are clamoring for. But he says while bringing in new residents, the city must also protect the investment of those who already call Clinton home by maintaining a consistent plan for growth. Roseman has lived in Clinton since 1982, retiring after 36 years in the trucking industry and then spending 8 years driving a school bus. He retired from that job in May and says even though serving on the board of aldermen is considered a part-time position, having no other job responsibilities would allow him to focus his full attention on representing Ward 3.
It's a service job, and I just love to see things get done.
Roseman says his priorities include making sure the money we have is invested right and spent right and continuing to make infrastructure improvements. He ran for the Ward 3 seat in the Republican primary last year, finishing second, trailing Barnett by only 51 votes. Chapman moved to Clinton as a third grader in 1993, and he credits the city with giving him a well-rounded attitude in education, developed in the Clinton Public Schools classrooms, on the soccer and baseball fields at Traceway Park, and as part of church choirs and attaché. These days, he's responsible for telling the CPS story through his job as public information officer and webmaster for the school district. And to why he's running for alderman?
It's very much my turn to take up the reins, take up the sticks, and do my part to help progress Clinton into the future.
Chapman believes recruiting young families to the city is crucial, and he wants to focus on what we can do to bring them here and keep them. Hughes is a Baton Rouge native who's lived in Clinton for 6 years. He works as a realtor and as banquet manager for Reunion Golf and Country Club in Madison. Hughes says he looked at other cities in the metro before discovering that Clinton would be a wonderful place to raise a family. He says he's concerned about the city's infrastructure and wants to make sure the schools stay on top. And while Hughes has an affinity for blue-collar workers and everyday people, he says Ward 3 has a good mix of residents, many with professional jobs, and he wants all to be represented. He says he's a true independent who would be beholden to his constituents, regardless of their party affiliation.
For a long time, I've thought that there's room for more men and women who are principled and who do not necessarily hold to a party ideology. You know, I'm a common sense candidate.
Walker had been in Alaska with his family for a few weeks and didn't realize there was a special election for alderman until 2 days before the qualifying deadline. After speaking with his wife, he decided to run. Walker turned in his qualifying papers on July 13th with little time to spare. He's pastor of a Vicksburg church and has lived in Clinton for 16 years. He doesn't think of himself as a politician and says his decision to become a candidate was based on divine direction. He says his 35 years in the ministry have given him leadership experience. And Walker says,
I consider Clinton a wonderful city, and I just want to be a part of helping it stay that way.
Walker says even though church work keeps him plenty busy, he says he's found that busy people get more done. The candidates will appear on the ballot with no party labels. The special election on August 2nd will be held at the Parks and Recreation Administration building at Traceway Park. Ward 3 residents who qualify to vote absentee can do so already at the city clerk's office at Brighton Park. If no one receives at least 50% of the vote plus one vote, the top two will meet in a runoff August 23rd. Once a new alderman has been chosen, that person will be sworn in during the next board meeting. This is Randy Bell.